On today's episode of the Investing RN podcast, we are doing something. Well, we're interviewing somebody that's not a nurse, but brings a lot of value to our audience because he started off, well, originally before he started insurance sales, he was not doing well and kind of going through some hard times. So whatever you're making as a nurse, he was making a lot less. And from there, he was able to get his mind right and got into insurance sales, quickly got to the pretty high pay scale there, and from there has just really taken off.
He coaches a lot of nurses also, so he's very well connected with the nursing community.
He's aware of the struggles of the nurses and what nurses are looking for in terms of supplemental income and ways to change their financial outlook. So a lot of good advice, and he's just a great speaker. I mean, it's great talking to him, and yeah, just all around.
My table raises and lowers on its own sometimes because I have a button here, and it just like put my computer into the camera view.
Just listen to the episode. It's a good one. He's a great guy. Don't worry about Josh's table. Welcome to the Investing RN podcast. Today we're joined by Damon Dillard out of Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, where it's a crisp 23 degrees today. We just found out. He's an entrepreneur. He's doing life insurance sales. He does some coaching, and he has a big team of nurses he's working with. So going to get into a lot of stuff about business and life and just setting yourself up for the future. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Honored to be on. Hopefully we can deliver on the value to all these nurses out here. I'm excited for it.
So, so you're from Columbus, you're doing the life insurance sales. Kind of give us a little backstory on yourself. Where, are you from Columbus originally, and how'd you get into this type of business?
Yeah, well, I love to start my story by saying I was born at a very young age. So some people will catch that on the way home, but I'm really no different from anybody else. Matter of fact, because I do get a chance to train and coach so many nurses, you all are way more intelligent and way more intellectually acute than I would ever be. I graduated high school with a 1.7 GPA. I ended up leaving college as a sophomore. And I know what you're thinking. Did that come with a degree? Did I graduate early? No, I decided I was done. Okay. The only reason I even went to college was to play basketball. I had a tremendous love for the game of basketball, but ended up leaving college as a sophomore. I was 28 years young. So not to get that far into my backstory, but I quickly realized that formal education can only do so much, but self-education can truly make you a living. And so I never had a chance to get any advanced degrees or anything, but I felt a tremendous passion for entrepreneurship, not because I wanted to be a self-starter or someone that thought outside of the box or that I wanted to create a company. I don't know how I can put this, but I was broke. Okay. And when I mean broke, I was broke with multiple O's, right? I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul, John, Luke, every single one of the disciples. And what was so funny around that time is when I would speak to people that I thought were doing well financially, they would always hit me with this statement. You ever seen that meme with Arthur where he creates a fist like that? You guys ever seen that meme? It's just an Arthur fist. Like he's upset because they keep asking him. But anyway, people would always say something to me, and it always confused me. Whenever I would tell them my money problems, they would go, "Well, Damon, you have so much potential." And I'd be like, what does that mean? Like, well, where is this potential? Like this proverbial mountaintop of potential, it's not showing up in my bank account. And so I quickly fell in love with personal self-development. And a long story short, that's how we got to where we are now.
This episode is sponsored by All Day Investments. If you would like to get your start in real estate investing, but don't want to deal with toilets or tenants, we have several new opportunities that might interest you. Head over to alldayinvestments.co/invest or follow the link in our show notes to book a call with our team.
So what does that look like when you're getting into personal self-development? Do you just like go pick up a Tony Robbins book, or like how do you get started with that?
Yeah, that's great, man. Like I said, no real no real esoteric or metaphysical or woo-woo thought to it. I was broke. And so what I was trying to figure out very, very quickly is, how do I create some type of money? I didn't even know it to be wealth. I didn't know it to be rich. I didn't know what those words even meant. I just knew that I didn't have resources, right? I didn't have the financial means to even pay $685 a month for rent for myself and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and my daughter. I remember driving a 92 Saturn, right? And it was a 92. Some people like listening right now is like, is that a planet? Like, what is a Saturn? It was a car. It was a car. And it was purple on pink. And when I say pink, it wasn't because it was painted two different colors. It was because of the sunburn that was on the hood, right? But this car was so bad. It was a stick shift manual transmission, and you could literally hear me burning up the clutch up and down the road. I mean, this car was rented by my aunt. Okay, I begged my aunt to get this car. She said, if you pay me $40 a week, I got your back. And that car got repossessed. And so when I say I was struggling financially, no pun intended there. And I remember reading a book, and it was by a gentleman by the name of T. Harv Eker. T. Harv Eker. The book is called Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. Because in my mind, at that time when I was broken, I thought there was something I needed to do to create wealth, to create money, to help ends meet, if you will. And I remember he said something. I thought he cursed at me when he said it in the book, right? I was upset when he said it to me because I was trying everything. I was working 3 different jobs. During the morning, I was working at a hotel. During the afternoon, I was in a sales position. At night, I was helping a good friend of mine clean daycare centers. And I was still struggling financially. And so for me, I thought, okay, if I take on additional jobs, if I take on additional hours, if you told me about a get rich quick scheme, I didn't care. I didn't want to get rich slow, right? And so I was trying everything, but it wasn't working for me. And he said something in the book. He said, Damon, you take you wherever you go. He said, wherever you show up, there you are. And for me, that meant a lot, because it meant that no matter what I did, no matter what career I chose, no matter how many hours I worked, it did not equate to more money. It simply equated into me being more tired. And so I heard a law. Because, I started to teach. Now I teach this way, and I started to learn about principles and laws. And it was very, very interesting to me when I heard it the first time, because I'm like, wait a minute. The earth is literally governed by laws. Everybody has heard about the law of gravity, right? You would never argue with the law of gravity. I don't care if you're short, fat, skinny, tall, rich, poor, ugly, cute, what school you came from, what area you're from. You would never, it's irrefutable. What goes up must come down. No matter who you are, if I take you to the top of this building and I throw you off, you're not going to float, you're not going to fly, you will fall. Why? Because it's a law. And so there are these laws and these principles that govern things. And when I learned, wait a minute, there is a law behind making money. I had never heard that before. Wait a minute, my mom told me if I work the 40-40-40 plan, everything will be taken care of my entire life. Damon, what's the 40-40-40? If I work 40 hours a week for 40 years of my life, eventually I'll retire, but I discovered that hopefully I'll be able to survive on 40% of what wasn't working before. And so I figured that out. I'm like, wait a minute, Mom, you never told me that there was a law behind creating wealth. Here's the law. Your income will be in direct equivalent to the value that you bring the marketplace. So I said to myself, wait a minute. Okay, my income, the money I make, whatever I made in 2023, whatever I made last month, whatever I make per hour is going to be based on the value I bring the marketplace. Watch this. Keyword, value. One of my mentors told me, he said, Damon, do not look to become successful. Look to become a person of value. And so when I looked it up, I said, wait a minute, my value is going to be based on my level of personal self-development. Damon, what is that? Write this down. Your character traits and your competencies. My character traits, discipline, imagination, resourcefulness, focus, emotional intelligence. That's what I mean. And if you all can figure it out so far, I have a very long way of answering questions. So to answer your question, Damon, why did you get into personal development? Because I wanted to increase my value.
So I've been following you for a little while, and I hear your story right now, but then I see what you're doing right now, and you're on private jets, you're going to Miami, you're doing all this other stuff. So what did your journey like from going the poorest of the poor is what it sounds like to what you are now, and what type of commitment does it take to get there?
I think you said it best. You actually answered the question with a statement. You said, well, the question with a question, what type of commitment? Number one, it takes a decision, right? I think a lot of people give themselves a way out because they think they're making a decision when in fact they're really just making a choice. I remember reading a book when I was broke, right? Like I was so broke, my guys, that I had to go into Barnes and Nobles and just stand next to the personal development section and read the books. Like I couldn't buy the book. And so I'm just standing there reading books. And I don't know if you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Tim Ferriss, but he has another book called The 4-Hour Work Week. Here it is. He has this book called The 4-Hour Work Week. And I'm like, ooh, I would like that. I would mind that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was reading a book by him and he was interviewing billionaires, right? Very similar to what you just asked me. How did you do it? Well, 10 years ago, I was trying to figure out, how do I do it? And one thing that I figured out very quickly about success is that success leaves clues. If I can figure out what's in a successful man or woman's head, I can have exactly what's in their hand. And I remember he was interviewing a gentleman by the name of Peter Thiel. Now, Peter Thiel owns the Houston Rockets. He owns the Post Oak Hotel in Houston, which is a beautiful resort. This man is a multi-billionaire. And I said to myself, wait a minute, okay, I want to make it to millions one day, but I think I could probably learn something from a billionaire as well. There was one question that Tim Ferriss asked Peter Thiel that changed my life forever. He said to him, listen, you've been going into these companies, you've been consulting them, you've been creating them to 10, 20 times EBITDA. You've been able to take them from $50 million to 500 plus million, able to sell, blah, blah, blah. He said, if you were on your deathbed and you only had one word that you could write down to give to your children, your grandchildren, your legacy, that would allow them to create the same level of success that you've been able to create, what would it be? Now, what's so funny, Josh, is I'll get people on like Zoom calls or at live events, and I'll ask them, I'll say, what do you think the word was? And you'll have all these people go into the chat. They're like, discipline or belief or focus or work ethic. And I'm like, first of all, that's 2 words. Okay, follow along, right? one word. And at the end, you'll have all these comments. Don't miss this. You'll have all these people guessing the word. And then I'll finally just make them stop. And I'll say, just stop. Nobody gets it right. A room full of PhDs, a room full of doctors. Listen, more degrees than a thermometer, and they still won't guess the word. And then they'll be like, why do you think we didn't guess it? And I said, I can tell you why. Because you're not a billionaire. you don't have the mindset. Watch this. The word is decision. What Peter Thiel told Tim Ferriss, he said, if I could write down any word to give my family that would help them create the same level of billions of dollars, it would be decision. He said, because the number one thing people do not do in their lives is make a decision. Damon, what is the difference? Because I thought I was making decisions, but I'm here to tell you, no, you were only making a choice. See, a choice is an A and B. A choice is, if this doesn't work out, then I do have another plan. A choice is, if this doesn't work out, well, I'm possibly going to. A decision is, I will do this or die. And so in January of 2015, I made a decision that I will never be in that position again in my life. I was 3 months past due on my rent. I'm 3 months past doing my utilities. I'm about to lose anything and everything that I love. And I said, you know what? There is no way I will ever be here again. And I never looked back. The decision that I made is I said, you know what? I will use the vehicle I have, which at that time, all I had was my life insurance license. And I said, listen, it is no longer negotiable for me to even earn money. Now watch this. In 2014, the entire year, I made less than $11,000. The entire year.
Wow.
Within 90 days of me making that decision, I made over $155,000. Within 3 years, I had over 160 agents under my team. Within that amount of time, we were doing over $6 million a year in revenue. All because I made a decision.
So you mentioned the potential earlier and people telling you have the potential, and that's obviously something I'm sure a lot of people hear. But then to take that potential and make that decision in your story, what did that look like? Like going from like day 1 to day 90, what were the steps you were doing that got you to make $155,000 in 90 days?
Yeah. I believe potential is unrealized energy, right? Like there's something that you have to do with the potential, right? I could potentially be the greatest in the world at many things, but until it's backed up by consistent action, nothing happens. I was having a conversation with nurses this morning. We had about 30 of them on the line, and we were talking about a income earning opportunity. And I said, I no longer want you all to set a goal for a result. I think what a lot of people do incorrectly is they say, Damon, over the next year, I want to make 6 figures, or over the next year, I want to make 7 or 8 figures. No, what I did in the very beginning is I did not set a goal for an income earned. I set a goal for a behavior adopted. That's the difference in potential. Because I could potentially earn $10,000 a month. I could potentially, but without consistent action, that never happens. And so I think for brand new entrepreneurs, one of the biggest mistakes that they make is they set the goal to be on the jet. They set the goal to be in the Lambo. They set the goal to have XYZ as an earning or result or a have, HAVE, but they never set the goal to become. And so I remember there was a statement that I wrote down on one of my whiteboards in the beginning of my career. And the statement was a question. The quality of your life is going to be in direct correlation to the quality of the questions that you ask about your life. And the question was, how would I behave if I was number one in the world at what I do? I wrote this question when I was 3 months past doing my rent, 3 months past doing my utilities. How would I be? I had an eviction notice on the door. I did not have a car at that time. I was not self-sufficient as a man. This was only 10 years. This is not decades ago, right? I am the first person in my family to ever become a millionaire. No one showed me, hey, Damon, do this. It was a question. How would I behave if I was number one in the world at what I do? At that time, all I had was a life insurance license. And so the goal was not, okay, how do I make 100? Watch this. The goal wasn't even how do I pay my rent? The goal was, what do I need to do every single day for me to prove that I am number one in the world at what I do? It was a behavior. And so the behavior from that point was I picked a niche, whatever you want to call it, NICHE, right?
I still don't know.
Right.
That's a debate between us every day.
I don't know, whatever it is, right? I picked that. I picked a niche. I got very serious about my prospect or my avatar, and I learned how to sell. Now, I've been in sales, I think, since I was born. But at that time, I got crazy serious about learning my prospect, and I went crazy. Every single day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., I remember telling my girlfriend, who's now my wife, I remember telling her, I said, babe, for the next 2 years, you may not see me alive. I said, that is the sacrifice that I'm hoping you're willing to make, because if you do, you will never ever have to work another day in your life. Now, I was broke and I retired her. Damon, what'd you just say? I was broke and I told her, do not go back to work. Why? Because I made a decision. See, it would have been easy for me to say, hey, I'm going to try this, but just in case it doesn't work out financially, babe, you got my back, right? Now, for my fellas on the line, I'm not trying to step on any toes. And for my ladies on the line, don't go home and be forcing your man like, hey, you're supposed to be taking care of me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what happened in my household. And so it was consistent action from that point.
So I have a question about motivation, because there's a lot of, I don't want to call them wannabe entrepreneurs, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are just getting started. And so for example, you made 155,000 in 90 days. There's a lot of people that do not see that kind of results so quickly. So what do you tell people to keep their motivation high because I mean, entrepreneurship, it's a long game. It doesn't matter what you're in. It's always a long game. So what do you tell them to keep their motivation high if they're not seeing results in 90 days, 120 days, sometimes a year?
Yeah, I love what you just said. And the word that I want everybody to focus on right now is the word see. S-E-E. S-E-E. Hey, Damon, how do you keep somebody motivated if they're not seeing results? Listen, I'm not a religious person by any means. I am rather spiritual. And so I'm not here to push my beliefs upon anybody else. But even if you don't necessarily believe in God, I believe that the Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, does have some principles in there, just like any other personal development book that I have on my shelf. And there is a passage in there that just simply says, it's a principle. It says, write the vision, make it plain, so that he or she that reads it will run. I'm going to say it again. Write the vision, make it plain, so that he or she that sees it will run. Now, what's the significance of that? What I train people all the time is the only difference between me and anybody else is the word believe. Believe, believe. The word believe means to accept something as true. To accept something as true. So in other words, like Shakespeare said, to think you can and to think you can't, you're right. Okay, Damon, what are you saying here? If you want to know what you've been believing for in any aspect or area of your life, simply look at your results. Okay, so what do I have in my bank account right now? That's what you've been believing for. What are the results of the relationships I have, not only with other people, but with myself? That's based on your belief system. Now, why am I telling you that? If what I'm believing for is based on what I see, right? You ever heard somebody say, I must see it to believe it? I'm going to reverse the order of that. You must first believe it before you see it. But the only way I can get myself to a place of believing is if I consistently see or hear the right information. Now, I started this by saying, write the vision, make it plain so that he or she that sees it will run. I want to give you an example, Josh and Colin. I believe that your mind is the GPS for your entire life. You get that? Your mind is the GPS for your entire life. So watch this. I would never go to the GPS in my car and put, get me there. I would never go to the GPS in my phone and write, take me somewhere hot. Why? Because it wouldn't even pull up directions. But see, what's so funny about people is they tell me, Damon, I'm not motivated. Damon, I am stuck. Damon, I'm not seeing results. And then I ask them a very simple question. And I say, okay, cool. What's your goal? Well, I want to make more money. Okay, well, that don't cut it. Because if you go on the side of the road right now and you find a dime, guess what? You just made more money. Well, Damon, you know what I mean. I just want to be financially free. That don't cut it either. Because the last time I checked, your money wasn't held up in a bank. Well, Damon, I just want better. What does that even mean? Listen, clarity of your vision causes acceleration towards your goal. And so the challenge with most people is they see their current life or their past results more than they can tell me about a comfortable future. And that is why that's all they continue to get. Damon, so you mean to tell me the only thing I would need to do is to decide on a destination? Absolutely. So in other words, there's 5 areas that I focus on with my mentees when changing their lives. I don't do it I don't change their life. They do it for themselves. I just give them a tool. And I ask them, number one, in your personal life, two, your financial life, three, your business or businesses, four, in your lifestyle or leisure, and five, in your contribution to the world. Here's my question. All things being equal, if today was January 1st of 2025, what would have needed to happen in the last 11 months that would have made those areas of your life the best you've ever experienced? See, most people can tell me, once again, way more about 2023 than they ever could about 2024. And then they wonder why they feel like they keep repeating the same life over and over. I want to give you this definition and I'll let you go to your next question. I'm really big on words, right? I learned a long time ago from one of my mentors. He said, Damon, whenever you're reading a book, if there's a word that you don't understand, it's your responsibility to look up the definition of that word. Why? Because if you don't understand a specific word in a syntax of a sentence, then that means everything from that word on, you don't accurately understand. And he said, so I'm going to need you to be very, very curious. He said, do not be lazy with your language. Look up the definition of words. There's a word I want to give you all that might blow your mind. And the word is future. I don't think anybody listens to a podcast to have the same future. The reason why your guests right now are listening to your podcast is because they're expecting to glean some type of information that will improve their future. But I guarantee right now that no one knows the definition of the very word future.
Yeah.
Write it down. The word future means the time or the period of time following the moment of speaking or writing. The time or period of time following the moment of speaking or writing. Damon, why do I feel like I keep running into the same relationships over and over? Because you keep talking about the old ones. Damon, I keep running into the same opportunities and they ain't working. Because you keep talking about, watch this. Most people will never hit their potential because they use gossip as a bonding tool. I'm going to encourage your guests, your listeners, to not ruin their future by talking about the past. If you learn that, you don't need motivation. You don't need inspiration because you'll start drawing your future to the present because you start talking about it.
Yeah, the decision thing I think is very powerful because it is different than like choices and whatever, and making that decision. And we actually talked to somebody recently, and something that's kind of with interviewing a lot of different nurses, something that is a reoccurring theme for us is like nurses doing these side hustles but keeping their licenses current as a backup plan. And I'm guilty of it too. Like, you know, I've been out of nursing for a couple of years, but it's always been there, and it's like I can just fall back on that. But to make that decision, we spoke to somebody recently and she was like, no, I made the decision that this is what I was going to do. And I let my license lapse. And that's like, and she's like skyrocketed in the DC area as a real estate agent. But as far as like, if you're talking to like, let's say a group of nurses and they're trying to make this decision, like you did it from a place of being absolutely broke. But, you know, nurses have like a little way where you could work per diem or you could, you know, do some shifts to like save up. Like, what kind of advice would you give them in preparation for making this decision and taking this leap of faith into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's so good, man. That's so good because a lot of the events that I do with some of my nurses are enrollment events. And so the example of an enrollment event would be like a webinar or a workshop or a challenge where you gather a group of people and you pretty much present them with an opportunity, right? And one of the main things that I talk about first is awareness, right? So if you're a nurse and you're aware that what you're currently working on is no longer working for you, I think it's important to really conceptualize that feeling first. Because what happens is, I don't know if anybody's ever been in a bad relationship here, but like, you could end up being in a bad relationship for years, but you become so comfortable with it, you end up just thinking that's the way things are. And so when you get in a new relationship, I heard somebody talk about it a little bit earlier where, if I'm just going to use this as an easy example because guys do go through it too, but I'm going to talk to the ladies real quick. Some of our ladies have been through bad relationships for so long that they end up getting in a good relationship and think the guy's soft. She's like, oh, he's a pushover. No, boo, you have trauma and he's actually a great guy. So the filter that you're now looking at him through is based on trauma. And so it's like, wait a minute. Why are you even looking outside of nursing for another opportunity? Because last time I checked, nurses make between $80,000 to $150,000 a year, which is nothing to shake your fit. Like, that's great money. Well, Damon, it's not enough for me. Okay, let's start the conversation there. What do you want? And then I think there's a very honest conversation that needs to happen because the only enemy to great is good. And so what you're telling me right now as a nurse is the reason why I'm going to hold on to my license is because I don't know if this is going to work out. Well, again, there needs to be an honest conversation about what you really, really want. Every single nurse that we have in our program right now, I know because I've looked at the statistics, I've looked at the morale of nurses. I understand that you all, for the most part, are actually overworked and underpaid based on what you all do. Like I've become intimately connected with the schedule and the routine and the habits of everything. I'm just going to say the word that you all endure every single day. And so when people say, "Oh, nurses are paid," they're underpaid for everything they do, for the emotional support that they offer families, for the physical support that they're offering some of their clients. Oh my God. And so when you come to a point where you're like, "Ooh, I think I want to look at something outside of this." Well, again, can we use that emotion as leverage? Because here's what I see happening a lot, right? Because I work with them every single day. Here's what happens. The initial thought of, "Oh my God, I could go into real estate. I could go into life insurance. I could become a digital marketer." Here's what happens. I don't want anybody to think there's something wrong with them. There are endorphins that are released when you come up with a new idea. When you set a new goal, there's a dopamine hit. There's an emotion that, yes, okay, I can do this. But watch this. The opposite chemical reaction happens when you begin to work on that thing. This is when it becomes lethargic. This is when it becomes boring. This is when it becomes, oh, I don't feel motivated right now. Yeah. And you quickly think, you know what? I should just go back to what I was doing before. And that's where 99% of the world ends up. And so what you were talking about, okay, Damon, how do I stay motivated? How do I keep the feeling of, you know what, this is why I'm doing this. The reason why I'm going to go through these mental myopias of being bored, of being challenged. I'll give you all this and then I'll let you go to the next question. I got a nurse practitioner right now that I mentor. They are getting into the digital marketing space, and they're having some challenges. And I had to remind them, I said, listen, how many years did you go to school to become a nurse practitioner? And they're like, oh, I went to school, between 6 and 8 years, whatever. And I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. You gave yourself 6 to 8 years to make what you make right now. And your expectation is to take your yearly income and in a new field, make that in a month. And you think you're going to do that because you got one mentor? Help me. Like, well, I tell people all the time, I say, listen, yes, I made $155,000 within 90 days. But what you did not see was the previous 16 years of me sharpening a skill set that allowed me to capitalize on an opportunity when I became the right person. And so I kind of hate social media because social media it over glorifies and sets an unrealistic expectation for entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously hard, and it doesn't get easier. You just simply get better. And so my encouragement to those nurses would be, you need to find a mentor, you need to find a community, and you need to make a decision. And if you don't, keep your license.
So I have another question, kind of similar to what you've been explaining. So a lot of us, depending on if you're advanced practice or if you're a nurse, you spent 4 years, I guess, creating your identity or whatever you want to call it. In my case, I went to school for 9 years. And so part of me is like, I don't want to feel like I wasted 9 years of my life. But at the same time, I don't want to see, this is not what I want to be doing the rest of my life. So how do you speak to people who are kind of struggling with that identity crisis, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, that's so good. I remember talking to Russell Brunson. Do you all know who that is?
I'm familiar, yeah.
Guy with ClickFunnels. I was at an event and I remember asking him, I said, how did you go from, struggling as a college wrestler with a family to creating $1 billion company? Like matter of fact, I was specific in my question. I said, what did you have to start believing? Because at the end of the day, your belief is based on the way that you see yourself. That is your identity, right? I see myself as, and you're always going to behave in a way that's congruent with the way you see yourself. In other words, your identity. And so some people can't stop being nurses because that's all they see themselves to be. But watch this. This is what he said to me. He said, Damon, the first thing that I had to do is I had to believe that I was called. I hear a lot of nurses saying, you know what? I feel like I'm being called to more. I feel like I've been created for more. I feel like this can't be all there is. And I hear that a lot because it's almost like, as a nurse, what is the end game after you become a nurse? Yeah. And I asked them, I said, okay, when you were in school, okay, these are the professional degrees that I need to get to in order to become a nurse, or some of them, their aspirations to become a PRN princess or to become a nurse. But after that, what is the end game? And many of them can't tell me. About 95% can't tell me an end game above being a PRN princess. And that's interesting to me. I'm like, that's not what you were born to do, obviously. So here's the second thing he said. He said, understand also that everything that you've experienced up to this point in your life was on purpose for your assignment. Okay, so number one, I have to believe that I was called to an assignment. Number two is everything I've experienced, me going through 9 years of schooling, me experiencing every single day in the profession, me coming across every person I came across, the relationships, the emotional ups and downs, that was all purposeful for my assignment. That's the mindset shift, because it's never by mistake. Everything happens for a reason. And I think I heard somebody say that you can only connect the dots of your life looking backwards. I would not be able to have the conversation that I'm having with you all right now if I didn't go to Atlanta to do an event that I felt like at the time I was not being paid my worth for. I got up there and delivered as if I was being paid $1 million for. A young lady by the name of Nurse Lois happened to be in the crowd and said, I've never heard anybody speak like this before. She and I ensued a conversation that led to her having a $170,000 day. Within the first 2 months of us working together, she made over $265,000. She became $1 million income earner and introduced me to a network of hundreds of nurses. But I would not have been able to do that had in 2015, I didn't make a decision to say, you know what, I'm going all in entrepreneurship. And because of that, I ended up starting to build a team, and somebody left me with over $100,000 worth of debt, which taught me how to love people even though they may do you wrong. Every single one of these experiences, I could go back and go back. I remember being 3 years young and my mom taking me into every single senior center in Cleveland, Ohio. And I remember talking to all the elderly people. Had I not had that experience, I may have never gotten into insurance and been comfortable having conversations with older people. I remember my mom, she would not allow me to go outside and even play until I read out loud at least 10 pages of a book. Had I never done that, I would not have been able to articulate or communicate the way that I am with you. It all happens for a distinct reason.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we're trying to be mindful of the time here, but we obviously you do life insurance sales, you're doing the mindset or the coaching and all that stuff, and I think we should maybe touch on that real quick, but and then we'll get into our final five here. But I like the way the conversation has gone, so we just kind of let it flow there. It's like I think it's practical for everyone, and especially nurses, but it's practical for everyone. So this has been awesome. But yeah, so what does your professional life look like in terms of like the life insurance and coaching?
Yeah. So, like I said a little bit earlier, I got licensed in the life insurance industry in April of 2014. So I'm going on my 10th year in the industry. I grew a team from about 2015 to 2021. We dissolved of that agency in 21 for me to go into my purpose work. So it's funny that you would ask me about that. You said over the last 9 years, I've created this identity. Me leaving from building and recruiting in that industry was by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I felt like I was letting a lot of people down. I felt like I was leaving a lot of people behind. And I remember having a conversation with my therapist, and she said, Damon, if you continue to go back there, you are the graduated senior that keeps showing back up to high school at lunch. She said, it's not that you quit. She said, it's just that you graduated. And so I graduated to the next phase of my life. And I believe this will be my life's work, where I coach, where I mentor, and I train both life insurance agents and sales professionals. And so I am still a licensed life insurance agent. I still sell policies every single day. That is my bag. I love it. I've created a new passion for the life insurance industry because if you don't mind me saying this, and hopefully you don't, I'm going to ask for forgiveness and not permission here. I get really, really upset whenever I'm scrolling through social media and I see people almost in a sense being lied to and manipulated when it comes to different life insurance products out there. And some influencers almost making them sound as if they are investments and overinflating numbers. And so I created a new life goal where I said, you know what, I am going to become the number one financial literacy coach in the world. And I'm going to do that through the vehicle of life insurance. And so that's what we're doing right now. The majority of my content is surrounding that. You know, how do we use some of the ideas that the Rockefellers put in place to help you create not only financial literacy within your family, but ultimately create wealth that will last for generations. The reason I got really passionate about that as well is I am the first generation millionaire in my family. And so I remember my mother being on government assistance. I remember receiving WIC, W-I-C. I remember her, receiving food stamps. And I remember what that lifestyle felt like. And that was only one generation ago. But I read a stat that really scared me. What it said was the first generation after that person that became the shift in the family, me basically, right? That first generation, meaning my immediate children, squander the wealth 90% of the time. There's a 90% chance everything that I've worked my face off is squandered with my first generation. Now watch this. Of the 10% that are able to sustain and preserve the wealth that's created, only 30% of them will keep it going to the next generation. The study showed by the fourth or fifth generation from the first person creating wealth, they are back to square one. And that scared the crap out of me because I'm like, wait a minute. I'm working all this hard. I'm changing the world seemingly, right? Whatever. And by the time my great-great-grandchildren get here, they will experience the same life that has caused me trauma and abandonment issue. Like, wait a minute. Like, the very thing I worked my face off to get away from is what my great-great-grandchildren are going to experience? Not on my watch. And so I studied again, what do wealthy people do? And I came across two families, the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers. Now, here's what's interesting. At the late 1800s, both of those families were the wealthiest in the world. There's a movie that you can check out on Amazon Prime. It's called The Men Who Built America. And so you have the steel magnates and the oil magnates and the guys like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford. And I was studying this and I found the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers. Well, a lot of people don't know this, but the Vanderbilts were the richest family in America at that time. The problem is they think that the university was named because of their wealth. It wasn't. It was named because of their fall. They needed to contribute, in other words, philanthropy work, just to save on taxes because they were broke. Watch this. But the Rockefellers, on the other hand, John D. Rockefeller, when he passed away, was worth $1.6 billion. Now, this is in the late 1800s. Now that would have been trillions of dollars, right? Here's what's interesting. Since he passed away, he's had over 273 heirs. Over 273 people have come into that family. Over 9 generations. They have built their wealth from 1.6 to $9.7 billion today. When I heard that, I said, how'd he do it? Because I want to do what he did. Number one, if anybody's taking notes, write this down. I learned that wealth is not an amount of money. Wealth is an idea. And what he created was an idea. He created something called My Family Office. It is a properly structured trust where he had an accountant and a family banker oversee everything. And so now there was no entitlement. And so nobody could come into the household and say, hey, listen, because I have the Dillard last name, just because I'm grandfather's favorite, or I remember great-great-granddad said something about me. No. If you don't have the right type of values, if you don't have the right type of morals that are in alignment with the trust, you don't get any money. The second thing he did, cash value life insurance policies. The majority of the clients that I enroll right now get IULs. It's an index universal life policy. Why is this important? Because the 3 inhibitors, or the 3 things that will stop and block you from building wealth or building a safe retirement, whatever it may be. Number 1 is market volatility. Number 2 is inflation. And number 3 is taxes. So in other words, you heard me right. If all you do is invest in your 401k, first and foremost, that was never created for your retirement. It was created to help small businesses and business owners to save on taxes. That's a whole nother story. We can do a whole podcast on that. I ain't going to do that to y'all right now, right? Number 2, some people are saying, well, let me go ahead and invest in a Roth IRA. Well, the challenge with that is you're still taxed on the growth. And so at the end of the day, if I want to keep my money, I need to find a tax-free shelter, life insurance, to be able to do that. Well, Damon, I'm going to go ahead and invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. That's great. But that's a speculative market. Meaning, why would I ever want to rest my retirement or my legacy on speculation? Because in 2020, everybody thought everything was going to be fine. And then we all lost our shirt. In 2008, everybody that had a 401k was crying in their hearts. Same thing in the year 2000. And so when I look at index universal life or life insurance, I can build my money tax-free in this vehicle. I can participate in the market upturns, but never the downs. And added to that, I leave a tax-free death benefit that will blossom, grow, and pay out to my family whenever I leave. And what the Rockefellers did is they made sure every single person that came into the family got one of these policies, so that way when they pass, it continues the cycle of wealth coming into the family. That's why I'm so passionate about life insurance, because not everybody, hear me closely, not everybody is going to have what it takes, either from a character standpoint or a capacity standpoint, to build wealth. But every single person breathing can buy it. And that's what I love about life insurance. And outside of that, I do a little bit of coaching too.
I don't know. We're kind of going back and forth. Should we do our final five? But I kind of have like one question that it came up for me earlier when you were talking about when you made this decision to pursue, life insurance, and you told your wife, for the next 2 years, you might not see me. That's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. It's like, at what point are you, I don't know. It's like, where do you find that balance? Like, are you hurting your family by pursuing this? Are you helping them? And like, I think Brandon Turner from the Bigger Pockets podcast, or Better Life, whatever he's doing now, he said, whatever, in like 10, 20 years, like your kids won't remember how much money you made in all these long times. They'll just remember the time you spent with them. I probably butchered that, but whatever, you get it.
Yeah, he said it way better.
How have you found that balance? Having, I don't know, how many kids are you up to now?
5. He said, how many are you up to?
It was one about 10 years ago.
Based on what the doctors are able to do, I'm done, right? As long as everything worked out properly, I am done. So, yes, 5 children. Yeah.
Well, I will say we interviewed somebody who the doctors had done something. Yeah. And he's up to 10 now. So, be careful.
He thinks he's done, but you never know.
Ooh-wee. Great question. So here's what I would say. Anytime that you start something new, it is going to take way more energy than you thought. Mm-hmm. I love the analogy that most people give of a plane or even a spaceship. About 80 to 90% of the fuel that is used in those vehicles is used to get them off the ground to a comfortable altitude, right? And so because I was the first in my family that did it, it took a tremendous amount of focus, intention, and attention. Now, with that said, I love coaching. And here's why. I had a coach at that time, but remember, whoever has your ear has your future. And so the only thing that I could do is what I was being advised to do at that time. What my coach told me to tell my wife was, let her know let her know everything's going to work out financially, but you may not be home a lot for the next 2 years. That was what I was advised at that time. If someone was to tell me now, Damon, I'm in a very similar position to you, how do I have balance? Here's the first thing I would say. There is no balance. But there is something called harmony. Because if I try to balance my life, that means if I take the top 5 priorities of my life, my spiritual life, my family life, my business, my contribution, and then myself. Guess what? If I am balancing, that means there's only 100%. I am 100% capacity. That's all I got. But if I'm balancing, that means I'm giving 20% to one, 20% to the other, 20. If I give 20% to my marriage, I end up in divorce. If I give 20% to my spiritual life, I'm spiritually bankrupt. If I give 20% to my business, it fails. How do I give 100% to everything so everything grows? It's called harmony. And so write this down. Discipline and structure equals freedom. I have in front of you a calendar. And I keep telling my wife to make sure that we get a link to this company because I'm pretty sure anybody that follows me has bought one of these calendars. It is called a gallery leather notebook. Gallery leather notebook. You can go to galleryleather.com, and the calendar that you want to get is called the Weekly Academic Planner. Let me show you guys this. You guys see this?
Yes.
Here's every calendar that I've had since 2015. Right? And I'll show you this real quick and I'll let you all go. So this is my 2015 calendar. And every single day I would write what I did. Right? And so this is my legacy, but I want to show you this. In the back of the calendar, we have calendar days. And so I'll give you an example of a day. 5:30 a.m., wake, meditate, read. 6:15, workout, chest, cardio. 7:30. BMV. I had to go to the BMV that day. 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Build my business. 9 to 11. Wrap up time with the family. So I share that with you because when I state my 5 priorities, let me put this back here. when I told you all my 5 priorities, right? You got your spiritual life, you got your family life, you have your spiritual life, family life, business, my contribution to the world, and me. Every Sunday, I sit down with my calendar and I'll write out. I will batch the time for the whole week. Okay, spiritual time, Monday through Sunday, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Family time. Hey, babe, what do we have going on this week for the kids? And I put that in next. So my daughter has cheerleading. I put that in the calendar first. My son has basketball. I put that in the calendar first. Next, business. Hey, babe, this week it looks like I got meetings. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, I put that in the calendar next. Contribution to the world. My contribution to the world is my social media. It is, the mentorship work that I do. I put that in my calendar. Time for me. That's my workouts. That's whatever I need to do for me. Here's what ends up happening. I have a structure to my life. Now, when I'm at home, I don't have to think about work. When I'm at work, I don't have to feel like I'm missing time with my kids. When I'm taking care of me, I don't have to feel like, oh my God, I'm taking time away from my wife. No, because we have date days, we have date evenings. What is that called? That's called harmony. And there is this lie being told in entrepreneurship that you have to sacrifice it all. Fellas, listen to me. I almost ended up losing it all because I thought that way. From 2015 to 2020, there is nobody I know that worked harder than me. And then in 2020, something happened to the entire world. I ended up in my house and I'm looking around like, who is this woman in my kitchen? Oh, that's my wife. Who are these little kids? Oh, these are my kids. And so I don't want your audience to find out the same thing I did. Wait a minute. What are you talking about, Damon? Financially, I was rich. But relationally, I was bankrupt. That's what happens when you think there's balance. And you decide, okay, I have to sacrifice all this for a few years. No, you don't. You just have to have a little bit more discipline with your schedule. You have to learn prioritization. You have to learn boundaries. And when you do that, now, I'm not the pot calling the kettle black, guys. Like, I'm not perfect, right? If you talk to my wife some nights, she like, you said the conference call was going to end at 9. It's 2:01 right now. I'm a talker, right? So you already know how my days go sometimes. Progression over perfection.
Well, I guess we'll have to have you back on for the final 5.
Yeah, we didn't go as deep into the life insurance as we expected, but that's fine. We'll have to have you back at some point. This is amazing.
Yeah, good excuse to bring you back. And you gave us 5. You gave us your 5. So that was
true.
our final 5. So that replaced it. So that's perfect. So where can people find you?
Easy enough. I'm on all social media channels. It's Damon P. Dillard, YouTube, Damon P. Dillard. I have no cool names or anything like that. Instagram, Damon P. Dillard. Would love to connect.
Awesome.
Sounds good. So everybody go reach out to him. And
I do want to say this real quick. I just want to acknowledge the both of you because I think a lot of us take for granted right now, speaking to your audience, I think a lot of us take for granted that we live in the information age and there's so much information out there. And so for you all to go into a marketplace where it seems to be a lot of noise and be a voice or a beacon to your industry, to your culture. Like I understand the nursing culture is it seems to be a very tight-knit community. Just says a lot about your all's integrity. It says a lot about your character. It says a lot about your vision for the world. And this is what you all are doing is the most selfless act that anybody could do, because I'm sure that you don't have to do this to make money, right? But you are doing this from the kindness of your heart to share the information that you believe will help other people advance. So I want to acknowledge you, praise you all a little bit. And it's been an honor to share this space with you.
Oh, thank you.
thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Send this to 10 of your friends. Everybody can find tons of value from this one.
That has been great. Thank you.